Welcome back. The Midweek Breakdown is on. I'm the AntMan, your host, and the guy that tries to push the buttons here. These two are the brains, Brandon Stevens and Dalton Miller. Brandon, I know you went hunting this week, but I haven't seen any pictures yet, so I'm guessing you got nothing.
I got nothing. I've watched a few little doe play around, literally came within like 10 feet of my stand. And I got a couple cute little videos that the girls liked of those,
Sure.
but I saw a couple of bucks, but nothing that was big enough to shoot. So
They need another year, right?
yeah, give them one more year, I guess, if they don't run off before then.
And then watch out, because Brandon's coming back.
Yeah, I'm bringing my bazooka next year.
take a couple out at a time, yeah.
I ain't trying to miss nothing.
That's fine. It's a good time, man. Deer season. And well, you could get those if it were next week right now.
Yeah. Starting the 18th starts the holiday season.
Yeah.
Here in Oklahoma, so it's just doe season. Even if you have buck tags left, you can fill your buck tags with doe tags.
Nice.
Or they don't even call them bucks and does anymore. They call them antler and antlerless because there's been more and more does that are actually having antlers. So, they identify.
It was just how they identified. This is a different topic.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Well, listen, I know that you guys, I love a Dalton that says nothing, stays out of trouble by saying nothing. Okay,
well,
you guys are
he's the one on this podcast that's going to not say anything just to stay out of trouble. I am the one on this podcast that is going to say whatever the hell comes to my mind.
And I'm the one who will set you up. That's what I do.
Right, so. And you're the one that's going to lob the softball to me.
Everybody needs one. Yeah. You guys are the ones that are going to break this thing down here today as we move along. So if you wouldn't mind indulging me for a minute here at the top, I think this could help set the stage and maybe even help steer the direction of the conversation of our podcast today. It feels like college football has entered the Wild West. The regular season isn't even cold yet, and a lot of guys are already diving headfirst into the transfer portal. What happened to loyalty? It seems like it's been replaced with dollar signs. We're living in the NIL era now where loyalty doesn't seem to be to a program, a coach, a family legacy, or, even the fans. It's the highest bidder. I mean, listen, I'll be honest, I get it. The kids have a small window to make their mark, and if someone's offering a bag, it's hard to say no. But what about playing for something bigger than yourself, for the team, for the legacy? It feels like it's slipping away faster than ever. And then you throw the new 12-team playoff into the mix, and man, the game is changing in ways that we never saw coming. The expanding bracket is shaking things up, no doubt. It's giving more teams a shot, but it's also got some coaches like just straight up heated. I mean, he's not even a coach now, but Nick Saban chiming in, for example. He's very vocal about how this might devalue a regular season schedule, how every game used to matter. You lose one, maybe two games, you're out. Now you could lose three. I mean, there's scenarios where you could lose four and still find your way into the playoff picture. Does that make the regular season just like a warm-up act? Or how about even Iowa's coach who said he's worried about the logistics, extra games, player safety, the grind on these kids? It's like we're trying to turn college football into a miniature NFL without thinking about the long-term cost. But at the same time, isn't this what we've been asking for? More opportunities, more drama, more teams with a chance to prove themselves. The group of 5 schools, they've been banging on the door for years, and now they've finally got a seat at the table. So here we are. Loyalty traded for NIL deals, tradition being stretched thin, and a playoff system that's, well, it's as exciting as it is divisive. College football isn't what it used to be, and maybe that's okay. But the question is, where do we go from here? How do we keep what's special about this sport while adapting to a brand new era? Because one thing is for sure, college football, as we know it, is never going back to the way it was. What do you say we start checking out the official 12-team bracket and dive into some overall thoughts, and we'll get granular as we move along. Brandon, taking a look at this, what sticks out to you first?
I mean, I'm going to be called a hater here, but Texas got the princess treatment. I mean, seriously, losing.
So did Penn State. Penn State too.
So did Penn State, but Texas plays Clemson, the number 12 team, And then if they win that, they play Arizona State, who, in my opinion, should not have a bye. We talked about this in our little pre-podcast meeting. I don't think Arizona State or Boise State should have a bye. And going into this season, we were like, yeah, this sounds great. This is going to be awesome. Seeing it play out the first time, I am with the masses that say, get your 12 teams in that qualify and then reseed. And reseed 1 through 12. You know, if 1 through 4 get a bye, then 5 plays 12, 9 plays 8, 6 plays 11. You know, I mean, do it like that. I get it. But there is no reason Arizona State or Boise makes no sense that they have a bye. Texas got the princess treatment by playing Clemson. If they beat Clemson, they play Arizona State to get to the Final Four. Oregon got royally screwed. The only undefeated team in this thing. And they got to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, which Ohio State, they've already played once this year and beat them by 1 at home in a great game. I just, Penn State has to play SMU. If they beat SMU, then they get Boise State. I mean, I'm not saying that Penn State gets by both of those teams, but I mean, they're playing really good right now. I like it. I like the 12-team playoff. There's going to have to be some tweaks made to it. And I don't expect it to be very long before legitimate tweaks are made. It wouldn't surprise me if they were made next year. But we asked for the playoff for years. We got it, and now we don't like it. You know, I mean, I don't even, do I say we're Americans? Like we got it good. We got what we wanted. Now we want something better.
Exactly.
I don't, are we just OU fans? We got what we want and now we want something better. You know, I don't know what it is, but there's definitely got to be some tweaks made in my opinion.
I want to get both of your thoughts here. So first, Dalton, do you agree with the majority of what Brandon just said?
Yeah, 100%.
What would you, if you took these 12 teams, these are the ones that qualified. Dalton, I want to start with you. Could you reseed them? Put them in order and how you think that they should be seated here.
Yeah, I think that Oregon stays 1, Georgia stays 2, and then I go. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit. I go and I heavily look at strength of schedule when I talk about who's supposed to be next. Sure. And I think you've got an argument for a couple different teams at number 2 when you look just at these 12 teams, but Tennessee could be your third best team in this playoff bracket. And then you're looking at Ohio State, and then you're looking at Notre Dame, wildly enough, when you look at strength of schedule. And so then from there, you've got, SMU, Penn State, Indiana, Texas is probably ahead of them in strength of schedule. But again, the fact that they lost both of their ranked games to Georgia hurts them. You can't put them in the top 4, in my opinion. And then Clemson has to be at the bottom as well. So, yeah, I agree with everything he said. And, I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. I even take it a step further and will say I don't agree with all 12 teams that are in this.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of it is, as he said, it is what we wanted. And I love it. I'm excited for it. I'm extremely excited for the 12-team playoff, and I can't wait to watch it play out. Maybe there'll be an upset I don't expect. But I'm not complaining about the 12-team playoff. And I think that as we've seen it play out in year 1, I'm like, okay, surely we're going to make some major tweaks to this thing, because this is not, in my opinion, the 12 best teams, and it's not seeded 1 through 12 when you look at this bracket. Like he said, Oregon is the best team in the country, and I think they've got to potentially play Tennessee, who is the 3rd best team in this bracket.
Brandon, same deal for you. You're the one who brought it up. You take the 12 teams that qualify, and then you reseed them from there. How does yours look different from Dalton's?
I mean, it's probably not a whole lot different. Mm-hmm. I go Oregon, Georgia, number 1, number 2. Georgia beat Texas twice. I think, as crazy as it is, I mean, their strength of schedule is 20, but as crazy as it is, I think I might go Texas number 3.
Okay.
Then I get, to Tennessee, Notre Dame, Penn State. I mean, Clemson has to still be 12 for me. I think Clemson, Oregon, and Georgia are the 3 teams that are right in this bracket.
3 out of 12.
I think Oregon, Georgia, and Clemson are right. Georgia had the number 1 strength of schedule. Clemson or Oregon is undefeated. Yeah. Clemson got in a barn burner game Saturday night, came down to the wire. I don't know. I don't know how I see that. I want to ask Dalton this. You said you don't even agree with the 12 teams that are in. Who else would you have in this besides the ones that are in?
Yeah, who would you take out?
I would put in Alabama over SMU.
Would you?
I would. And I'm not even an Alabama guy. I'm not. But SMU is 67th strength of schedule. They got 1 ranked game and they lost it. And then they lost to Clemson. And what I believe, the ACC did everything they could in that game to get another team in. That game was a blowout. And I watched a breakdown of Joel Klatz, who he was furious over the way that game played out, which was hilarious to watch. And I don't think SMU deserved to be in it. And then to look at SMU and say, all right, we're going to give you Penn State. So now the committee is just trying to make themselves look better by hoping they put them against a team that they're going to be competitive with in the first round.
So can't you make the same argument that you just made for SMU with Texas, though?
But Texas does have a better strength of schedule.
Yeah, but I mean, the only team that they played that they beat that was worth anything was A&M.
But their strength of schedule is better. That's why I said I heavily look at strength of schedule.
Well, let's dive into that. Let's talk about that strength of SOS.
But wait, why Alabama? Okay, my other question is why Alabama? You talk about their strength of schedule and about all the teams they played, but does losing to 2 6-6 teams out of 2 of your 3 losses not mean anything?
No.
It seems like everybody is only looking at the wins and only looking at the teams they played and not gauging the losses.
Yeah,
Alabama lost to 2 6-6 teams. 100%. I think they have zero argument to be in this.
Cool, and that's great. And I think the committee looked at it that way. But my point is, when I look and I wanted the top 12 teams in the country in this game. I don't like the format of if you win your conference right now, you're guaranteed a spot. All right, that's what they did. I wanted the best 12 teams. Mm-hmm. And I personally think that both the 3 teams, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, I think all 3 are better than SMU, Clemson, Indiana. Though I think they're better. They didn't qualify based on what the committee said. This is how you get into the playoff. But does losing to everybody's saying that the committee is saying that these losses were too much, but you're also saying, so if Alabama were in the ACC, the 2 losses they had, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, the 6-6 teams you mentioned, both of their strength of schedule. Oklahoma is the 4th strength of schedule in the country. Vanderbilt is also up in the top. I can't remember the exact number. Where'd you go? 8. So two teams top that 10. They lost to are in the top 10 of strength of schedule and played SEC teams very tough. Now, Oklahoma had a couple where they didn't. And so I'm just saying I would put more weight personally on the fact that you're saying that's a horrible loss. But if you throw Vanderbilt into the ACC when they're losing to SEC teams by 3 points, do they have 6 losses if they play an SEC schedule or an ACC schedule? Excuse me. That's what I'm just trying to compare.
I don't know, but losing to a team with a good strength of schedule doesn't mean a hill of beans to me.
If
they're not winning any games, but why? Why does losing to Oklahoma make Oklahoma such a better game for Alabama to play?
I think
Oklahoma's a 6-6 team. I don't think it.
I think that it's the fact that you have to do it week in and week out. And we've seen this argument when it was a 14 playoff and there were teams that got left out of the Big 12 for the SEC. There's a 1-loss team in the Big 12 when it's a 14 playoff getting left out for a 2-loss team in the SEC because they say the SEC is just a tougher conference, right?
Well, but a 1-loss and a 2-loss team we're talking about. We're not talking about a 3-loss team that lost to the beginning of the year that were barely 500.
Go back to the very beginning of the year when we talked about a 12-team playoff. We talked about it. You can get into the playoff with a 3-loss team. Like that's the reality now. So like people that are mad about that, like with a 12-team playoff, there's going to be that. And then that's why, I don't know, we probably won't agree on this. I don't think SMU is a great football team. I'm not excited to watch SMU play when they couldn't even win the ACC, when they didn't play a ranked team in their conference until Clemson and then lost it and got down 31-7. And then a lot of things transpired to get back into that game. And so I think that if you don't want it to be Bama, great. But Ole Miss, South Carolina, both of those teams are still better than SMU.
I mean, I think if Alabama lost to Tennessee, Georgia, and Ole Miss, that's a totally different story. But Alabama losing to Oklahoma, who is garbage, we know this firsthand, who is garbage this year, and then Vanderbilt, who is literally like a catfish and a bottom feeder every year. And if you want to make an argument, I think the argument has to be made for Ole Miss or South Carolina. I don't think the argument can be made for Alabama, who lost to 2 500 teams.
I'm just saying I put more weight into strength of schedule. I'm not even an Alabama guy, but what's the point in playing in the best conference in the country now? Seriously, when you could go stay in the Big 12 and you could not play anybody all year long, lose in the championship game, and now get into the playoff over teams that do have to play against Kentucky and Ole Miss and Georgia and Texas and Tennessee and Alabama and Tech.
I don't disagree with that as an overall statement that the strength of schedule makes a difference. I just don't think Alabama has an argument this year.
But it's the Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina argument is all the same. Those three are tied, and they all have 3 losses in the SEC. All strength of schedule are better, and I think that their losses are more. I can sit here personally and justify their losses more than I can justify the fact that SMU is better because they only have 1 loss.
I'm not saying that. I don't know if SMU should be left in or not. I don't feel like they probably should. I told you they would be. Last week,
I was shocked when I saw the committee. I mean, we've seen the committee, and I think that we've seen the committee. I mean, we thought not this previous TCU team, but there was a time when Oklahoma State and TCU, people were like, "Oh, they're in for sure." And then they put 2 SEC teams instead of a Big 12 team in, and the Big 12 team got left out. Like, we've seen it happen. So I was kind of shocked when I saw that they didn't put the 4 SEC teams in, just knowing the committee in the past. But they did put the 4 Big 10 teams in. But again, I would put South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss up against Penn State and Indiana every single time, and all 3 teams are still going to win that. And so but I still also think that Indiana and Penn State are better than SMU. I think the conference you play in, and
I agree with that too.
The people that whether you could play a team that is not good, but if you go play Mississippi State and they've been having to battle against the best teams in the country 4 out of their 8 conference games, it's still gonna, if you're not in the SEC, it's gonna be a dogfight against Mississippi State.
I agree. I mean, SEC has 7 of the top 10 hardest strength of schedules on the season. 7 of the teams in the SEC are in the top 10 for strength of schedule. The other 3 are Big 10 teams.
So I just think that it outweighs. I do.
So
I think if you put Vanderbilt up against SMU right now, Vanderbilt beats SMU.
Maybe. I mean,
Alabama beat Georgia, Vandy beat Alabama, and SMU lost to Clemson, who Georgia ran Clemson out the stadium.
I know, but it's easy to say that on paper. It's hard. It's not as easy to say that once you get to the games. So let me ask this. I know we probably need to move on, but let me ask this real fast. Does this mean that Notre Dame, Dalton, Anthony and I talked about this earlier, this means Notre Dame's never getting in a conference? If, we've talked about they should have to be in a conference. They're going to schedule 11 cupcakes every year, and USC, and even if they lose to USC, they're 11-1 and they're automatically in every year.
So this is,
right?
Again, this is where I'm to my argument on Alabama, and why is it wrong for Alabama to lose to Vandy and Oklahoma, but Notre Dame doesn't get punished at all for not playing a great schedule and losing at home to Northern Illinois?
I mean, I wouldn't have put Notre Dame in. But
who decides the strength of a team?
That is a system. Like, that's not the committees. Like, that's almost like, I guess one way to explain it would be there's a poll. Like, it's a ranking system based on home or away game. And then the strength.
A mathematical equation.
Yeah, it's numbers.
Yeah, it's a mathematical equation that's much too difficult for me to solve. But it really just is a mathematical equation. I don't know what all goes into it, how you figure strength of schedule, how many years it goes back against the teams you're playing, or what recruits play into. I don't know. It's an equation. I was never that great at math, unless it was geometry, and if it was geometry, I could always equate it to something with sports. But other than that, I was never really that great at math. I can do simple algebraic equations, but that's an equation that I don't even want to try to figure out. It's kind of like the old BCS formula was. That thing was insane. Teams got a certain amount of decimal points for,
right.
I don't know that there's a real way to explain it to a lay person like myself, I guess.
It's just interesting how much weight it carries, but nobody really asks where the weight comes from.
Right. Yeah. I feel that.
If all the weight is in the SEC, then it should be, like you, I don't remember which one of you said it, but I think it was you, Dalton, talking about Mississippi State. Mississippi State, if they played someone outside of the SEC, they're going to be a hard team to beat.
And so to that point, they have the second toughest strength of schedule. They finished 2-10, and one of their losses was to a Big 12 team, Arizona State, who got a bye, and it was a 7-point game.
Wow.
So that's my point. Like, even though you suck in the SEC, you played Georgia to 10 points. You played Tennessee to 10 points. You scored over 20 in most of your SEC games. They scored more points than Oklahoma did in a lot of these games, but they couldn't finish. They didn't have a defense, and they had the second toughest strength of schedule. You put them against one of these teams that don't play a tough schedule, and they play them really tough. So you throw Mississippi State into a completely different conference. Are they 2-10, or are they 8-7, 7 you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, I think that's a big difference. And that's why I wanted the 12 best teams. If that meant that you played 4 top 10 teams and you only won one of those games, but you played, then I want to see that team in the playoff.
It's never going to be, once it's to this point and they've made it like it is, it's never going to be the best 12 teams.
Until that's where I agree with our buddy Blake at this point. Go to the NFL format. The conference doesn't matter. And coaches are even talking about it now. They don't care if they win conference.
Right.
And that's another thing that made me mad about this SMU Clemson game is SMU's coach, he was already complaining before they even played the game that they were going to get left out if they didn't win. You hadn't even played the game yet.
Yeah, go win and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk right now about there becoming, 2 16-team conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten, basically leaving the NCAA. and creating their own college NFL, right? And if that happens, then it will be a system like the NFL. You'll have wild card teams. You'll have,
Sure.
I mean, it's same amount of teams, should be easy to figure out at that point. And it's all going to be based on division titles, and it's all going to be based on just your win-loss record.
Yeah.
Did you vote
I
for
also
that?
think that to help
You
this,
in on that?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think to help this too, conferences need to go to divisions if we're going to stick with conferences for a while. Because look at Clemson;
I agree.
they snuck in the back door into that
Sure.
into that ACC championship game, and they didn't even have to play Miami to do it. So
Yeah.
that's why Dabo's over there praising Syracuse's coach in the media, like, "Oh, thank you so much." You didn't have to get through Miami to do it. So go to divisions to where you either have to play them in the regular season, or you're going to have to play them in the ACC championship unless they're not one of the best teams. But Miami was the best team through and through, I think, until they just slipped up. But SMU had games that were really close. Miami had games that were really close. Clemson lost to Louisville, who's not even ranked. And SMU lost to Louisville, who's not even ranked. So that's why I just think that's why I would put so much more stock into strength of schedule if I'm looking at the 12 best teams. And I definitely agree we have to reseed. Boise State, awesome. Your strength of schedule was not, though. You had the 78th toughest strength of schedule. I know you played Oregon tough, but you're not one of the best 4 teams in the country.
Well, if it was these 12 teams, it should be Clemson 12, SMU 11, and then everybody else below them.
Yeah,
if let's
probably
just say these
Indiana
were the 12
next.
teams that got in.
Yeah.
Indiana next, but
Notre Dame.
maybe even Notre Dame next. But I mean,
Well,
I don't know what Notre. What
at
was
one
Notre Dame?
point, they
versus
are
Indiana?
now 50. Where'd you go? 59. At one point, a couple weeks ago, they were a little higher, but teams that they had beaten kept losing. So now it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that some people need to realize this too, that are outside of this talk. Beating somebody who was ranked in week 3, who hasn't done anything all season, does not count as a ranked win. It matters what teams do. The body of work matters. So just because you beat a top 10 team early, that doesn't mean anything. Look at USC. They got way overranked after they beat Texas A&M, and then all of a sudden they suck. Look at Missouri, starts number 5 in the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think there should be rankings until the college football playoff bracket comes out in the 9th week.
Yep.
Then rank all the teams. Everybody just play, don't worry about it, and then we'll rank the teams once it gets closer to the end of the season.
What if rather than
ranking a
rankings,
team preseason is horrible?
what if rather than rankings you had like an SOS number? Similar, but not the same.
Yeah, it's going to show this is how tough your schedule is right now.
Yeah, because the strength of schedule for a team doesn't change whether you win or lose in the moment. It could still have a great strength of schedule and lose, a couple of games up front or whatever it is. It's not as fluctuating as it is when you win or lose.
Yeah.
So if you put an SOS number there and said, hey, you beat the number 2, strength of schedule team, which would be, I guess, Mississippi State right now. So if you beat that team, but then maybe the strength of schedule would count for something in the masses' eyes versus just being guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, or just do what Blake says and do the NFL way. Go straight schedules, go straight records. When you get to the end, teams with the best records make it in.
Yep. There you go. That's cool. Chime in with your thoughts, whether you're watching or you're listening, especially if you're listening on Spotify. You can now leave comments on these podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to say thank you, however you're taking this in. But chime in. Let us know what you think about the official bracket that is now out, who you would have taken out and who you would have put in. Any changes you would have made, drop them in. Let us know. We'd love to talk about it next week here on the podcast. Moving over to the transfer portal, it is fundamentally reshaping the concept of team loyalty in college football, turning what used to be long-term commitments into transactional relationships. Players now have unprecedented freedom to lead programs at the first sign of adversity, often chasing better NIL deals, more playing time, or championship opportunities elsewhere. While this mobility can be empowering for the athlete, it's also eroding traditional senses of loyalty to teammates and coaches and schools that define the sport for generations. Instead of building programs over years, many teams are now piecing together rosters year by year, leading to a revolving door culture where loyalty feels secondary to individual gain. While there are success stories, the portal's impact raises questions about the long-term health of college football's team-first identity. Brandon, what would you think of maybe a limit to a number of times that a player could transfer? You get one transfer your entire time.
I've said this since NIL and the transfer portal became a duo.
Mm-hmm.
I think players should be allowed one transfer per their first 4 years, and maybe two, barring a coach leaving or some kind of special circumstance.
Sure.
Then my thing would be, if you graduate in those 4 years, you're allowed one transfer to go wherever you want for your 5th year of eligibility. That would be my thing.
Mm-hmm. How you feeling about that, dude?
Yeah, no, we are 100% locked in on that one, and I will honestly even push it a bit further. I would love to go back to the old days where coaches can hold your eligibility for a year if you transfer in conference, because some of this shuffling between conferences is driving me insane. So much for the loyalty, but just where's the competitive spirit at? You mentioned it when you were introducing this topic, is players leaving the first sign of adversity. Yeah. And that's what it is. Yes, money's a big deal, but some of these dudes in the portal will not get the big NIL deals. A lot of them are just looking for an opportunity to better themselves on the field, and they did not want to stick it out where they were for whatever reason. They didn't like a coach, or there was too much competition at their spot, or whatever it may have been. You're a Division I athlete. The coaches that brought you in obviously saw something in you. You can't just walk in off the street and get a position in that wide receiver room, quarterback room, whatever it may be. Go compete. Just be a competitor.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out after, year 2, okay, you have your red shirt year. You still got a ton of football left. Now maybe look and see if there's a better opportunity for you. But they brought you in for a reason, and you're just running away. And I've seen a lot of statistics on this, and I don't know exactly the number of how much spots are open, but that's what everybody talks about, is where are all these players in the portal going to land? Why don't we talk about how many of these players in the portal are not going to land somewhere? There's not enough spots available for how many people are in the portal.
Yeah.
Some of these dudes have played their last snap of college football and they don't even realize it.
Yep.
And for 2025, for 2025, the scholarship limit goes down to 105 from 125.
Well, that's not the scholarship spot. The scholarship spots stay the same. It's just the roster spots.
Yeah, that's the roster spots. Yeah, that's the roster spots. Go down to 105 from 125. So you have 20 less roster spots per team.
Yep.
In D1 football now. You're right. There are going to be a lot of guys that don't land anywhere, that thought the grass was greener on the other side, that are just screwed in the end.
Yeah. How long are we going to go until they start signing contracts? I mean, honestly, I thought we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I thought before we got to for the portal opening this year, it was that urgent that they would get something in place. Well, and it seems like no one has.
Did you guys read that letter, the full letter that Joe Castiglione sent out? No. About Oklahoma restructuring and almost bringing in a guy as a general manager of the football program. to structure the NIL stuff. And he mentioned in there, and I don't know the depth of it by any means, but he mentioned they're obviously still following because there's still some lawsuits that are currently ongoing about NIL deal and all this. I got a feeling it's going to be in legal matters for a really long time, that they may not be able to force a kid to sign a contract. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but because right now it's just, they've opened the floodgates. It's a free for all. And so if you make one kid and you say, all right, we're going to sign this NIL deal, you've got to sign a contract that says if you leave here, you're going to pay it back. I mean, I don't think they can do that unless they say that's going to be the deal for every single person signing an NIL deal. And NIL, NIL is so different though, because now the colleges and the boosters can just pay. It's not what it originally was set up to do, to where you just get paid for your name, image, and likeness.
Right. That's what it originally was supposed to be.
Now it's just colleges are just paying
athletes. You to play. Yep.
I mean,
and because I'm not super educated on this part of it. Does all the money that goes to the athlete go through the school to get to the athlete?
It wasn't supposed to at first, but I think it
didn't. But it does now.
It does now. Then that's an easy way to sign a contract.
I agree.
That actually makes it easier for you to sign.
I just am curious if they're able to, because why? You would think they would. And
listen,
why would
there is some kind of agreement in place.
Sure.
Because if you're going there, you're not getting paid up front. You're getting, there's some kind of stipend or a paycheck every week or every month or whatever it is. It's not, here's your $750,000, kid. It's, you haven't played it down. You're guaranteed in some way in writing that says you're going to get this. So how come, listen, I'll just go to just the normal job front. If you're in any kind of executive role anywhere, and when I say executive, I don't mean high level of any kind, just a manager of some kind, or in the world of entertainment, in which this is, let's be honest, there's always an agreement in place that says you execute this, you get this money. Instead of it just being for that, you get this money every year for 2 years. If you stick it out for a third year, you go up $250,000, something like that, something that puts some parameters in place that says, okay, you're coming here and we're investing in you. You stick around. Maybe you play half the season, maybe you play the whole season, maybe you play one game. You're getting paid the same. Why would you care? Because you're being invested into as a kid. You're not an NFL athlete at this point. That's not, you haven't proven yourself anywhere except high school. Those guys are about 4 inches shorter than you everywhere. You're now facing guys the same size or bigger than you, and you're just one of the guys. Now, if you can prove yourself that you are elite, that's a different story. But you coming into the game is you got to start all over. But we're going to give you a ton of money to come do it. There is unless I'm just missing something. There is nothing there that says you can't say, we'll do this, but you have to do a minimum of X, Y, Z, and not just 1 year and you're done.
I agree with that. There's gotta be something in place, even just for the slightest amount of accountability on everybody's parts. There has got to be something put in place in these contracts. The problem with it is like Dalton said, anybody right now can say, here's $40,000. If you come to OU, we'll give you $40,000. I was listening to a radio show this morning on my way to work, and they were talking about a big problem right now is Anthony. We'll just say, Anthony, you could call Baylor and be like, hey, have y'all seen this kid from Emporia State, this left tackle that is 6'7", 270 pounds and runs a 4.6 40. He's looking for somewhere to go. How much money would you give him? And they say, oh, well, we'd give him $100,000 to come here. And then you call, Tennessee, and you're like, hey, have you seen this kid from Emporia State? Same stats, same everything. How much money would you give him? Oh, well, we'd give him $150,000 to come here. Call somebody else, $250,000. And then you don't even know this kid. You don't know anybody in the school, and nobody has to have any kind of credentials to be able to do this. Then you DM this kid on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and say, hey, Tennessee's willing to pay you $250,000 to come play there next year. Are you interested? If so, I'll take 30% of that and I'll get you that deal. And this kid knows nobody, but he sees $250,000 and is like, yeah, I'm in. I'm a 19-year-old kid playing at Emporia State. I'll take $250,000.
Probably
I'm on my
17
way.
years old. Yeah.
Right. So it's a huge problem. And I don't want to call it an epidemic because I feel like that's more of a global type of thing, but it's a huge problem in college football right now and with NIL and transfer portals. And nobody has to have any kind of certifications or anything to become an agent for these kids. All you got to do is see somebody that you think's good and try to get a college that you send some tape to of this kid that says, oh yeah, we'd love to pay him to come play here. And then you reach out to him and it's done.
For as many things that the NCAA seems to have oversight on and the things that they seem to control, I have never seen the pendulum swing this quickly in the opposite direction of you don't get paid anything or you're expelled and you never play again to free for all. Everybody grab your mound of Coke. Go after it. Just dive in head first. Like, what in the world? How did we do this?
And I also do think, I could be wrong, I do think there are programs, though, that are paying kids, giving huge chunks of cash up front without them having to play a snap, without them saying you have to reach this many yardage or you have to produce this many wins. I don't think that there are some of these NIL dudes signing and there's not that expectation put on up front of you don't get this unless, even though it's not a written contract. I don't think there's verbal contracts to a lot of these, and that's why we're seeing them move on so quickly. But you're stating my point. What I was saying is that why are we not at the place that says you have to prove yourself in this way, and you have to commit to this long in order for you to even be eligible for any of this? No, I would love for that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's, to me, that seems very elementary because we do it in business every single day. How hard is it to hand that same contract with new wording that applies to what they're doing to come and play football at a D1 college? It can't be this difficult.
Yeah, it can't be this difficult. I mean, you can write a contract for anything.
Yeah.
So make them sign a contract that, like you said earlier, make them sign a contract where they have to pay back money if they leave before the, negotiated term is over.
Yeah. I mean, when a first round draft pick, any draft pick, but first round draft pick gets picked for, the first pick is to the worst team in the NFL, they're committing to a certain amount of time with that first contract. How long is that?
It's either 3 or 5.
Okay.
A rookie contract is 3 years.
3.
See, this isn't hard to figure out. There's blueprints all over the place. Yeah, just do it. Somebody needs to step up and grow a set. You guys like to take, NCAA likes to take control of the things that they think are important. Do you not think this is important?
Right.
That's my question to them.
Well, and that's why the schools that are able to pay a crap ton of money and like right now it's guaranteed, you're going to see the kids stay and play because it's not guaranteed in the NFL. Some of it is depending on your contract, but some of it is not. You have to meet expectations.
That's why you waive the big bucks up front. Hey, here's $300,000. You get 100 right now. You get 100 right now. But if you finish out 2 years here and you perform to this level, 300,000 is yours. Did you think you would make that much money as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old?
Yeah.
No way.
Come on.
No way. Yeah, something's got to be done. Whether they give up or whether they make it transfer rules where you can only transfer so many times or whatever. Yeah. I mean, because for lack of a better term, all these kids are doing every year is whoring themselves out for the best amount of money, for the most amount of money they can get
for that year.
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't blame them because the precedent has been set
Yep.
The precedent has been set where they're allowed to do that. I don't blame them. If I'm a 19-year-old kid and someone wants to offer me $600,000 to come play football somewhere, I'm going to do it in a heartbeat. But at some point, there has to be accountability. And if they break that contract that they signed, they got to pay it back.
We're all three from Oklahoma, so we've all been educated in the Oklahoma land run. It's kind of what it feels like. I don't know. Just go out and take your stakes and go stake out where you want to live, and that's your property. Congratulations.
Right.
Whatever you want to do. Well, I was going to say there's no games this week. There is one game this week, Army versus Navy, which I'd like to see. I'm a little more interested in Navy now that Oklahoma is going to be playing them, on the 27th. Because I'll be honest, I haven't watched one game of Navy this year. So it'd be interesting to see how well they play. And Army's been running roughshod on pretty much everybody. Back to our bracket real quick, and we pull that up. We talked about Notre Dame here at number 7. The same logic of putting Notre Dame there is how come Army didn't get this chance?
Because Army got smacked by Notre Dame.
Maybe that's it. So that was the qualifier. Got it.
Yeah, if Army would have beat Notre Dame, I think they're probably in.
How about that? It could have been big.
And now that we're in this era, I actually had a conversation with my dad a couple days ago about what would they have done because that conference championship game was last week, and if Army and Navy were close, right? Like they were pretty close to being in that championship game
at one point. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you do when this game still counts for conference, but it's played after? And I understand it's tradition. You want it to be the end, but there's so much in college football. You mentioned at the very beginning that it is coming to the end, and it's no longer, the tradition is no longer what it was. If I'm Army and Navy and I'm thinking 12-team playoff now, a lot more money involved now, we might need to restructure this football game because now we're competitive to possibly be in the playoff.
I'd bet money they move that game up to conference championship week or before conference championship week from here on out.
Yeah. The week before, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could see that.
Just make it the same weekend of all the other, the final weekend of college football, all the other rivalry weekend games.
I agree. And I understand, like you said, I understand why they do it. It's a big tradition to play it late, and neither one of them are ever in the running for anything. Yeah. So that is the tradition. But
until this year.
There was literally a chance 3 weeks ago that both of these teams, if both of these teams only had one loss and would have played in the conference championship game and then would have turned around the next week, which would be this week, and play their regular season game.
They're at that place now. It might be kind of cool to see something
play
like
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Same game, different field.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, we are looking forward to next week of going through pretty much all the playoff games, bowl games that we can pick in our time here together, and looking forward to doing that with you guys. If you haven't followed us on social media, you can find us there at Midweek Breakdown, and wherever you're watching or listening today, be sure and give this show a like. We appreciate that a lot. And remember, it doesn't cost you anything. It does do a lot for us, though, so if you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd love it. Appreciate you guys.
Well, guys, it's been fun moving into the college football playoff bracket.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be exciting. Got a week to rest before we get all our heart and blood pressure under control before it all starts. But you know what they say, right?
The weekend is good,
but the midweek is always better.
And boom goes the dynamite.